Well, good afternoon, and thanks for joining me. I'd like to spend a few minutes this afternoon talking about food insecurity. This is a term that the U.S. Department of Agriculture uses when describing those who don't have enough to eat and don't know where the next meal is coming from. Sadly, this is a challenge for millions of people across the United States, and according to the nonprofit Feeding America, 47 million people, including 14 million children, experience food insecurity every year. And that, of course, includes residents right here in St. Louis County. Last year, St. Louis County set aside $4.4 million in ARPA funding for food insecurity. However, we did not have the resources to stand up the program and work within the strict federal guidelines to have the money appropriated by the end of 2024. So my office suggested, and the council agreed, to move those federal funds into our county general fund, where we have a lot more leeway on how to spend them, and there is no restrictions on when to spend them. The council 2 weeks ago passed legislation that would have given $3.2 million of these funds to a farm in North County. And in turn, that farm would distribute those funds to half a dozen other growers that the farm selected. While the intent of this legislation was a good one, the bill does not pass legal muster. Without going through the legal process to select vendors for county funds, I can't and will not sign any contracts that would allow those funds to be released. As a result, I vetoed the bill that would have given $3.2 million to Rustic Roots Sanctuary with little or no oversight and few details on how the funds would help with our ultimate goal, which is ending food insecurity. As I said in my veto letter, I agree that food insecurity is a challenge for the county's most vulnerable residents. And as a doctor, I understand that access to healthy foods is key to addressing chronic disease and ending health disparities in our poor communities, in our communities of color. The council and I are aligned on the belief that eliminating disparities should be a priority for St. Louis County. But how we get there is where we have a difference. The legislation passed by the council, known as Substitute Bill number 1 for Bill 54, while aspirational, does not comply with the requirements of the Missouri Constitution, the St. Louis County Charter, or the St. Louis County procurement ordinances. Simply put, using public funds for a private purpose is prohibited by the Missouri Constitution. On Friday, I met with 3 of the farmers who backed out of the urban farming plan headed by Rustic Roots Sanctuary. They told me that the process made them uncomfortable and that any funds going to urban farms with the goal of addressing food insecurity should go through a competitive bidding process. They also said that the bidding process should be countywide and not just limited to District 4. Urban farming and those served by the farms go beyond the district's borders. I appreciate their insight, and I will continue to seek their input and the input of other urban farmers in St. Louis County. We need to continue to work together to move forward and make a real difference in the lives of our residents. I'm committed to working with the council to find another path, one that allows us to work within the constraints of the law. I've met with Councilwoman Webb, who sponsored this legislation, as has my staff, the county attorneys, and the acting procurement director. So here is a path forward that we presented to the councilwoman. With the council's approval, the county's procurement office will solicit bids to establish a food insecurity project. This new project will be housed in the St. Louis County Department of Human Services, which works with our county's most vulnerable residents. Under this food insecurity project, the Department of Human Services would develop programs and services to provide long-term solutions to food insecurity through the underserved parts of St. Louis County. I'd like to use the full $4.4 million that was originally allotted for food insecurity to go to this project so we can ensure that sustainable and effective programs are initiated. Also, I'm requesting another $100,000 to hire a full-time employee to administer this program in the Department of Human Services. We want to make sure that all the businesses who work in this industry have a chance to participate, and also to help us make a real difference in ending food insecurity in St. Louis County. As many of you have heard, we're working on the first comprehensive planning process in St. Louis County in 40 years. This plan, known as STLCO 2050, identifies providing long-term solutions to food insecurity as one of our top priorities. And this is why today I sent a letter to the council asking the members to allow the county to use the RFP process to officially get this plan underway. In addition, I've asked the council to authorize funding for this project by moving funds from the general fund of the St. Louis County budget to the Department of Human Services. This is an exciting opportunity to come together and help our residents who need it the most. I'm happy to take any questions.
This sounds like you guys are taking more ownership rather than outside interests of the situation with these farms. Is that fair?
Well, in order to expend county money, we have to have a process that's competitive, and in doing so, we'll have ownership over what that looks like.
How quickly could all of that?
How quickly could we put this together? I think we can have an RFP request in front of the council in a week, and then once that's approved, then we can put that out into the community, and it'll take a couple of months for people to respond.
So in the meantime, then, what do people, so that desert still exists, what do people do?
Well, right, for the food insecurity in St. Louis County, we have guidelines for how we expend county funds. And this is a relatively quick process to get an RFP out into the community and handle this concept of addressing food insecurity in a way that fits within the county's procurement code and the restrictions of the charter and the state constitution.
How will the Department of Human Services determine, assuming this program goes forward, how will the department determine what goals there are that the county wants to achieve?
Well, we'll set those goals together with the county council when we put the RFP together. We'll send that to them for approval. They will we'll need to be in agreement on what services we're trying to solicit. This is an area where we have really remarkable alignment on what we're trying to do. We just have to come up with a process that works within the constraints of the law.
So what does that look like then, as far as like the county, the human services, starting farms of their own up there in North County?
So what will this look like? So there are several components to address food insecurity. There's the production of the food. There's an educational component to teaching people on a smaller scale how to produce their own food. There's the collection and distribution of that, either to stores or to people directly through subscription services. That could be distributed through farmers markets. We could support the establishment of more grocery stores. There will need to be a communication component so we can let people know what's happening, let them know where the food is available, let them know where the grocery stores are close to their home, which they may not know that. So this has a lot of components. The food production is a very important and fundamental component of it, and I'm sure it will be one of the driving parts of this RFP. But someone needs to coordinate all that effort and make sure that the communication amongst the stakeholders in the production and distribution, educational component, the storefronts, the stakeholders and all that are communicating with each other. It needs to be sustainable. There may not always be a county funding stream to support it, so we want to get it going and make sure it supports itself. We'll need to have some way to measure what we're doing and make sure that we're meeting our goals. But the communication part of that's really important, to let people know what we're doing, to let people know where their opportunities are, and to let people know where they can get healthy food. But there's a lot to it, and we need someone in our Department of Human Services to coordinate that. The Department of Human Services is the Department of County Government that's closest to addressing the needs of vulnerable families. We help people with housing, we help people with programming, workforce development, helping people find a job or get trained for a job. That's part of Human Services. This is an important role for county government.
Is there a community that you're patterning this after, that's done anything like this?
There are other communities that have similar programs. I would turn to the urban farmers to describe them. I did not ask for details. I asked them the same question. Are there other communities that have done this? I will not be down in the details of building the program, but I will try to get people who have done this before to talk to each other.
Is there any situation in county government where a private nonprofit or business can receive money in any form from county without going through the RFP process, like a grant or anything like that?
The county cannot send general funds to a private individual or private entity without a competitive process. That's a restriction of the charter, and that's just how we have to do things. There are different restrictions for different funding sources from the federal government, but the county funds have restrictions on how they're distributed. Okay, thank you.